Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Cheating Tales Lab. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know, what part of the world are you watching from right now? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Quiet Storm. The clatter of dishes echoed through the modest kitchen as Tom Baker's calloused hands moved through soapy water. Each plate emerged spotless, a testament to his attention to detail. His old dog Buster snored softly at his feet, while his wife Eleanor's humming drifted in from the living room. "Honey, did you remember to call the plumber about the bathroom sink?" Eleanor's voice carried a hint of something Tom couldn't quite place. "Already handled it," Tom replied, drying his hands. "He's coming tomorrow morning." Eleanor appeared in the doorway, her petite frame leaning against the wooden frame. Her auburn hair cascaded past her shoulders, and her designer blouse probably cost more than Tom's entire wardrobe. "Oh, I thought you were working tomorrow. Took the morning off. Figured I'd be here when he comes." Tom watched her reaction carefully, noting the slight tightening around her eyes. "You didn't have to do that. I could have handled it," she said, her fingers drumming against her thigh. "I'm working from home tomorrow anyway." Tom shrugged, maintaining his facade of simple construction worker contentment. "No trouble. Besides, you know how these guys can overcharge if they think no one knows better." The weight of his hidden life pressed against his chest. 8 years as a Marine sniper hadn't just taught him how to shoot. It had taught him to read people, to notice the smallest details that betrayed their thoughts. The 5 years with the CIA that followed had only sharpened these skills. "Speaking of work," Eleanor continued, "Trevor's been pushing us all hard lately. He's expecting record sales this quarter." She walked to the refrigerator, pulling out a bottle of wine. Tom dried another plate, his movements deliberate. Trevor. The name alone made his jaw clench. Eleanor's boss at the real estate agency had been showing up in their conversations more frequently lately. "That's so?" Tom kept his voice neutral. "Thought you said he was being a pain in the ass last month." Eleanor poured herself a generous glass of red wine. "Oh, he can be, but he knows what he's doing. The commission structure he's implementing could really change things for us." Us. Tom remembered when that word meant something different. When they'd met at that barbecue 3 years ago, Eleanor had been drawn to his stability, his quiet strength. He'd been captivated by her energy, her ambition. Now, that same ambition carried a different weight. "Want a glass?" Eleanor offered, holding up the bottle. Tom shook his head. Got an early start tomorrow. He needed his senses sharp, his mind clear. The conversation lulled as Eleanor retreated to the living room, her phone already in hand. Tom heard the soft tap of her fingers against the screen, followed by the quiet click of their bedroom door closing. He finished the dishes, each movement measured and controlled. The kitchen radio played quietly, masking any sounds from the bedroom, but Tom didn't need to hear. His training had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, they were screaming. Moving silently, Tom made his way to the living room. His old phone lay on the coffee table, innocent-looking but modified with specialized listening equipment he'd installed weeks ago. The nagging feeling in his gut had led him to take precautions, to prepare for something he hadn't wanted to believe possible. He slipped the earphones in, and Eleanor's voice came through clearly, though pitched low. "Baby, this idiot doesn't suspect a thing." Her words cut through him like a blade. "Send your hitmen tomorrow. Make it look like a robbery gone wrong." The blood in Tom's veins turned to ice. Trevor's voice responded, smooth and confident. "Don't worry, beautiful. By this time tomorrow, you'll be a grieving widow, and we can finally be together properly. Just make sure it's clean," Eleanor continued. "I don't want any complications. My guys are professionals. They'll make it quick, and the insurance payout will set us up nicely. You've done well, baby. Just keep playing your part for one more night." Tom removed the earphones, his face a mask of cold fury. The love he'd felt for Eleanor crystallized into something harder, darker. He pulled out his secure phone, the one Eleanor didn't know about, and typed a message to a number he hadn't used in months. "Need equipment. Tomorrow. Life insurance scenario." The response came quickly. "Understood. Location? Usual spot. 0600. Tom deleted the messages and returned the phone to his pocket. He walked back to the kitchen, where Buster raised his head questioningly. "Come on, boy," Tom whispered, patting his leg. "Let's get some air." The dog followed him out to the backyard. Tom entered his shed, flicking on the small light. Behind his workbench, beneath a false panel, lay the tools of his former trade. He ran his fingers over the case containing his modified M40A6 sniper rifle. Next to it sat various electronic surveillance equipment, communication jammers, and other specialized gear he'd kept, just in case. "You okay, honey?" Eleanor's voice called from the back door. "It's getting late." Tom emerged from the shed, his face showing nothing but mild contentment. "Just checking on my tools for tomorrow's project." The lie came easily, naturally. Eleanor smiled, and Tom marveled at how genuine it looked. "Don't stay up too late. You need your rest." "Of course, dear." Tom watched her disappear back into the house, his mind already mapping out tomorrow's operations. She wanted a grieving widow? He'd give her something else entirely. The night air carried the scent of jasmine from Eleanor's garden. Tom remembered planting those bushes with her last spring. How she'd laughed when he got dirt on his nose. The memory sparked no emotion now. In its place was a cold, calculating focus he hadn't felt since his last CIA operation. Tomorrow, Eleanor and Trevor would learn what it meant to betray a man like him. Not the construction worker they thought they knew, but the predator they'd foolishly awakened. Chapter 2. The Web of Deception. The small shed at the back of Tom's property had always been his sanctuary, but tonight it became his war room. The space smelled of metal and gun oil, familiar scents that triggered memories of missions past. He pulled out his old sniper rifle, the weight comfortable in his hands, as he began the meticulous process of cleaning it. "You remember this, don't you, Buster?" Tom murmured to the dog, watching him from the corner. From before we played civilian. His mind drifted to the first time he'd met Eleanor, the memory sharp and clear despite his attempt to focus on the task at hand. 3 years earlier. The summer barbecue had been in full swing, the air filled with laughter and the smell of grilled meat. Tom had been standing apart from the crowd, nursing a beer, when she'd approached. "You look like you're planning an escape route," Eleanor had said, her smile bright and engaging. Tom had found himself chuckling. Force of habit. "Though I'm just a construction worker these days." "Just?" She'd raised an eyebrow. "There's nothing just about building things that last." Her hand had touched his arm, and the contact had sent an unexpected jolt through him. "I'm Eleanor. I sell the things you build." Tom Baker. He'd studied her then, noting the designer watch, the perfectly manicured nails, the hungry look in her eyes that he'd mistaken for ambition rather than greed. Present. Tom set down the cleaned rifle and moved to a locked cabinet in the corner. Inside were various electronic devices, each one carefully maintained. He selected several motion sensors and a sophisticated communication jammer. "Should have seen it sooner, boy," he told Buster, who wagged his tail in response. The signs were all there. He pulled out his secure phone again and dialed a number. "Mateo speaking." The voice on the other end was alert despite the late hour. "It's Baker. Need your expertise tomorrow afternoon. The kind that leaves no trace." A low whistle came through the speaker. "Must be serious if you're calling this line." "What's the scenario?" "Wife and her lover hired hitmen. Need to make sure their digital footprint disappears when I'm done." "Shit, man." Mateo paused. "Eleanor? The real estate agent?" "The same." Tom's voice remained steady, though his grip on the phone tightened. "Need everything. Their communications, financials, the whole package. Then I need it all to vanish at the right moment. Consider it done. You taking care of the physical side?" "Already in motion. Meet me at Joey's Diner, 1400 hours tomorrow. I'll have more details then." After ending the call, Tom returned to his preparations. He pulled out several more cases, each containing equipment that would turn his suburban home into a killing ground. Not for him. For the hitmen who thought they were walking into an easy job. As he worked, his mind kept returning to Eleanor's recent behavior. The late-night phone calls she thought he couldn't hear. The subtle changes in her routine. The way she'd started dressing more expensively, claiming it was necessary for her image at work. Tom had allowed her to believe he was oblivious, playing the role of trusting husband while his suspicions grew. He'd started documenting everything weeks ago, his training kicking in as patterns emerged. The frequent meetings with Trevor, the nervous energy when Tom came home unexpectedly, the careful questions about his schedule. He pulled out a small notebook and began writing, his handwriting precise and clear. Security measures. Motion sensors at all entry points. Communication jammer to isolate targets. Surveillance cameras with remote access. Backup power supply for all systems. Remote-triggered lockdown protocols. Equipment required. Combat knife, 2. Zip ties. Taser. Smoke grenades, non-lethal. First aid kit, for questioning. The list continued, each item chosen with specific purposes in mind. Tom wasn't planning to just survive tomorrow. He was planning to dismantle an entire operation. He checked his watch. 0200 hours. Time enough to finish his preparations and still maintain his cover. Eleanor would expect him in bed soon, playing the role of unsuspecting husband one last time. Tom packed away his equipment, leaving everything ready for rapid deployment tomorrow. As he stood to leave, his hand brushed against an old photograph tucked away in one of the cases. It showed him in his Marine dress uniform, receiving a commendation. The man in that photo had been direct, brutal when necessary, untouched by civilian softness. "Time to remember who you are," he muttered, tucking the photo away. Buster followed him as he secured the shed and headed back to the house. Through the kitchen window, he could see Eleanor in her nightgown, preparing a cup of tea. Her movements were relaxed, confident. She had no idea that her carefully constructed plan was about to collapse. Tom entered through the back door, maintaining his usual demeanor. "Sorry, lost track of time out there." Eleanor turned, her smile perfectly practiced. "I made you some tea. Chamomile. Helps you sleep." "Thanks, honey." He accepted the cup, not drinking. "You heading to bed?" "In a minute. Just need to check one last email from Trevor about tomorrow's listings." Tom nodded, watching her tap at her phone. Each gesture, each casual lie, filed away in his mind. Tomorrow, she would learn the cost of betrayal. Tonight, he would play his part one final time. He set the untouched tea aside when she wasn't looking and headed upstairs. In their bedroom, he went through his normal routine, all while his mind calculated angles, timing, and contingencies. The hitmen would come, expecting an easy target. Instead, they'd find a predator waiting in familiar hunting grounds. As he lay in bed, Eleanor curled up beside him as she always did. Tom allowed himself one final thought of what might have been. Then he locked those feelings away, replacing them with the cold focus he'd need tomorrow. The woman beside him was no longer his wife. She was just another target in his crosshairs. Chapter 3. The game begins. The construction site buzzed with activity as Tom worked alongside his crew, his movements precise and controlled despite the weight of the steel beam they were positioning. Sweat dripped down his back, but his mind remained sharp, focused on the multiple threads of his plan. "Baker," his foreman called out. "Got a minute?" Tom secured his end of the beam and walked over, wiping his hands on his work pants. "What's up, Mike?" "Got a call from your wife earlier. Said she's been trying to reach you." Mike's expression was concerned. "Everything okay?" "Phone's acting up," Tom lied smoothly. "I'll check in with her at lunch." He knew exactly why Eleanor was calling. She wanted to confirm his schedule, to make sure he'd be home at the right time for her planned robbery. The thought made his jaw clench, but his face remained neutral. At precisely 1,400 hours, Tom pulled into the parking lot of Joey's Diner. The small establishment sat on the outskirts of town, its faded exterior making it easy to overlook. Perfect for meetings that needed to stay private. Mateo was already inside, occupying a booth in the back corner. The tech specialist looked exactly as Tom remembered, thin, anxious energy barely contained beneath a veneer of casual indifference. "You look like shit," Mateo observed as Tom slid into the booth. "Save it." Tom pulled out a USB drive and placed it on the table. "I need everything on here analyzed and ready by tonight. Focus on financial transactions between Trevor Morrison and any suspicious offshore accounts." Mateo picked up the drive, his fingers dancing over its surface. You know this is going to cost extra, right? Rush job, high-risk target. Money's not an issue. Tom's voice was flat. Trevor's accounts will more than cover it. The waitress approached, but one look at Tom's expression had her retreating without taking their order. Talk me through what you've got so far, Mateo said, leaning forward. Tom pulled out his phone, showing Mateo a series of surveillance photos. Trevor's been meeting with these 3 men regularly over the past month. I need their communications monitored, their movements tracked. When everything goes down, I want them completely isolated. Jesus, Tom. Mateo whistled low. You're not just looking to survive this, are you? You're going to destroy them. They made their choice. Tom's voice carried an edge that made Mateo shift uncomfortably. Now they deal with the consequences. For the next hour, they went through the technical details of Tom's plan. Mateo occasionally interjected with suggestions, his expertise filling gaps Tom hadn't considered. The jamming device will need to be calibrated carefully, Mateo explained, sketching on a napkin. Too strong, and it'll affect your own equipment. Too weak, and they might get a signal out. Can you handle it? Mateo nodded. I'll have it ready in 3 hours. But Tom, he hesitated. What about Eleanor? She's not just some target. You loved her. Tom's expression hardened. Love is for civilians. She chose her side. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of preparation. Tom returned to work briefly, maintaining his cover, then made a show of leaving early due to a headache. His crew wished him well, none of them suspecting that their quiet, reliable coworker was preparing for war. At home, Tom moved with practiced efficiency. He placed motion sensors at strategic points throughout the house, each one connected to a central monitoring system in his shed. The cameras were next, hidden in plain sight. One in a smoke detector, another in a wall clock, 3 more disguised as electrical outlets. His phone buzzed. Eleanor. Hey, honey. Her voice dripped with concern. Heard you weren't feeling well. Want me to pick up some soup on my way home? That would be great, he replied, infusing his voice with just the right amount of discomfort. Might turn in early tonight. Poor baby. I'll take care of you. The call ended, and Tom allowed himself a grim smile. She really thought she had him fooled completely. His phone buzzed again. This time a message from Mateo. Equipment ready. Package contains extra surprises. Don't open the red case until you need it. Tom retrieved the package from their predetermined drop point, a storage locker at the local gym. Inside, he found everything he'd requested, plus a few additions that made him raise an eyebrow. Mateo had outdone himself. The red case contained a sophisticated audio surveillance system, far more advanced than what Tom had initially requested. He carried everything to his truck, his movements casual and unhurried despite the lethal cargo. Back home, Tom continued his preparations. He installed the new equipment with practiced ease, each piece adding another layer to his trap. The house that Eleanor thought would be his tomb was becoming his fortress. His phone buzzed with another message from Eleanor. Picking up soup now. Need anything else? Just you, he replied, the lie bitter on his tongue. While waiting for Eleanor's return, Tom made one final check of his preparations. The motion sensors were active, their silent signals connecting to his modified phone. The cameras fed directly to both his shed's monitoring system and a secure cloud server Mateo had set up. The jammers were in place, ready to create a dead zone at his command. The sound of Eleanor's car pulling into the driveway snapped him to attention. Tom quickly moved to the couch, arranging himself to look suitably under the weather. Honey, I'm home. Eleanor called out, her heels clicking against the floor. I got you that chicken soup you like. Tom watched her through half-closed eyes as she bustled around the kitchen, playing the role of caring wife to perfection. Her phone buzzed, and she checked it with what she thought was subtle discretion. Trevor's being impossible again, she sighed, setting down a bowl of soup. He wants updated listings by tomorrow morning. Can it wait? Tom asked, noting how she tensed slightly at the question. You've been working too hard lately. Eleanor's laugh was practiced, perfect. That's sweet, but you know how real estate is. Always on call. She kissed his forehead. Why don't you eat your soup and get some rest? I'll handle some emails in the study. Tom made a show of eating the soup slowly while Eleanor disappeared into the study. Through his phone, he could see her typing furiously on her laptop, no doubt coordinating tomorrow's attack with Trevor. The hours crept by. Tom maintained his sick act, occasionally coughing or shifting uncomfortably on the couch. Eleanor played her part equally well, checking on him periodically with convincing concern. "I think I'll turn in early," Tom announced around 9, his voice deliberately rough. "Don't stay up too late." "I won't," Eleanor promised. "Just need to finish these emails." In their bedroom, Tom lay awake, listening to Eleanor's movements downstairs. Through his earpiece, he could hear her conversation with Trevor. "Everything's set," she whispered. "He's sick, so he'll be sleeping heavily tomorrow. Your guys know what to do." "All arranged, baby," Trevor's smooth voice replied. "This time tomorrow, you'll be a wealthy widow. The insurance company won't suspect a thing." Tom closed his eyes, not to sleep but to focus. He reviewed his plan one final time, checking for any weaknesses or oversights. Everything was in place. Tomorrow, Eleanor and Trevor would learn exactly who they were dealing with. The bed dipped as Eleanor finally came to bed. She snuggled close to him, her betrayal made more bitter by the intimacy of the gesture. "Feeling any better?" she whispered. "Getting there," he murmured, playing his part one last time. As Eleanor's breathing evened out in sleep, Tom remained alert. In his mind, he was no longer Thomas Baker, loving husband and construction worker. He was the hunter he'd been trained to be, the predator who'd survived countless missions behind enemy lines. Tomorrow would bring violence and revelation. Tonight, he waited, patient and deadly, like the snake in Eleanor's carefully tended garden. She and Trevor thought they were orchestrating his end. Instead, they had engineered their own downfall. The night stretched on, marked only by Eleanor's peaceful breathing and the occasional rustle as she shifted in her sleep. Tom remained still, conserving his energy, his mind sharp and focused on the coming conflict. They wanted a grieving widow and a clean insurance payout. They would get neither. Chapter 4. The bait is set. Tom moved through his morning routine, his muscles coiled with anticipation beneath his casual demeanor. The kitchen radio played softly as he prepared breakfast, bacon sizzling in the pan while Eleanor sipped her coffee. "You're up early for someone who's feeling sick," Eleanor remarked, her manicured nails tapping against her phone screen. "Couldn't sleep well," Tom replied, sliding a plate of eggs and bacon in front of her. "Thought I might as well make breakfast." Eleanor's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, trying to mask her excitement. "Trevor's really pushing for these morning showings. I should head out soon." "Be safe out there," Tom said, watching her collect her things. "Heard there've been some break-ins in the neighborhood." Eleanor paused for a fraction of a second, her hand tightening on her purse strap. "Oh, I hadn't heard that. Just something Mike mentioned at work." Tom leaned in to kiss her cheek, noting how she tensed slightly at his touch. "Have a good day, honey." The moment Eleanor's car disappeared down the street, Tom's gentle expression hardened into steel. He activated the surveillance system, watching through his phone as Eleanor pulled into a parking lot 2 blocks away. She made a call. "It's done." Her voice came through clearly. "He's home sick, completely clueless. Your boys can move in whenever they're ready." Trevor's smooth voice replied, "Perfect, baby. The team will be there in 20 minutes. Remember to act surprised when you get the call." The grieving widow routine needs to be convincing. "Don't worry about me," Eleanor laughed. "I've been practicing my tears in the mirror." Tom switched off the audio, his jaw clenched tight. He moved to his shed, where his equipment lay ready. The listening devices were active throughout the house, motion sensors primed at entry points. He pulled up the feed from the street camera he'd installed last week, watching as a black SUV made its third pass of the morning. His phone vibrated. "Mateo?" "They're using a pretty basic communication setup," Mateo reported. "Standard encrypted channels, nothing fancy. The jammer will knock them out cold." "Good. Keep monitoring Trevor's phone. I want to know the moment he realizes something's wrong." "Already on it." "But Tom, these guys they're sending? They're not amateurs." I pulled their files. Ex-military, dishonorable discharges. They've done this before. Tom's lips curled into a cold smile. "Good. Then they should appreciate what's coming." He watched through the cameras as the SUV finally pulled up. 3 men emerged, the leader, tattooed and bulky, carrying himself with military bearing. 2 others, leaner but equally dangerous, moved with practiced coordination. "Police, open up." The leader's voice boomed through the front door, followed by a powerful kick that splintered the wood. Tom activated the jammers. On his screen, he saw the leader tap his earpiece in confusion. The man tried his phone next. Nothing but static. "Comms are down," the leader growled. "Stick to the plan. Find him, make it quick." The men spread out, weapons drawn. Tom watched them move through his house, their confidence growing as they found each room empty. He triggered the first trap, a high-frequency sonic pulse that made the leader stagger, clutching his head. "What the hell was that?" one of the others demanded. "Keep moving," the leader ordered, shaking off the disorientation. "He's got to be here somewhere." Tom switched views between cameras, watching them search. They were good, checking corners, moving, but they were fighting blind, while he saw everything. The leader reached the kitchen, gesturing for his men to check upstairs. Perfect. Tom triggered the smart locks, sealing the heavy security doors he'd installed weeks ago. The sounds of doors slamming made all 3 men jump. "We're locked in," one of the men shouted from upstairs. "Doors won't budge." The leader pulled out his phone again, desperation creeping into his movements. "Something's wrong. This isn't." His words cut off as Tom triggered the lights, plunging the house into darkness. The emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in a dim red glow. "Forget the plan," the leader barked. "Find him and finish this." Tom moved silently through his custom-built passages behind the walls, watching the men's infrared signatures through his tactical display. The leader was alone in the kitchen now, sweeping his weapon back and forth. The sonic emitter pulsed again, higher frequency this time. The leader dropped to one knee, disoriented. Tom emerged from a hidden panel, his movements swift and brutal. The leader never saw the taser coming. Upstairs, the other 2 men heard their leader's muffled grunt. "Marcus? You okay down there?" Silence answered them. Tom dragged the unconscious leader to the basement, securing him with zip ties. 1 down, 2 to go. The remaining men moved back to back, their training showing through their fear. Tom triggered another set of lights, creating shifting shadows that drew their attention. "This isn't right," one whispered. "We're being hunted." "Shut up. Just find him." Tom moved to his next position, watching them through the walls. Their heart rates were elevated, showing clearly on his thermal imaging. Fear was making them sloppy. He triggered a recording of footsteps, drawing them toward the master bedroom. As they entered, he sealed the door behind them. "It's a trap." The ventilation system hissed, releasing a mild sedative gas. The men fired blindly, their shots harmlessly embedding in the reinforced walls. Within minutes, they slumped to the floor. Tom waited for the gas to clear, then entered wearing his tactical mask. He secured both men, dragging them one by one to join their leader in the basement. In his shed, the monitors showed Eleanor arriving at her first showing of the day. Her phone rang. "Trevor." "The team's not responding." His voice was tight with concern. "Something's wrong." "What do you mean, something's wrong?" Eleanor's facade cracked slightly. "They're professionals, you said." "I'm heading over there myself." "No." Eleanor's voice rose. "Stick to the plan. They'll call when it's done." Tom smiled, checking the feed from the basement. His 3 guests were beginning to stir. Time for the next phase. He activated the basement cameras and audio system. The leader groaned, trying to focus his eyes in the dim light. "Welcome back," Tom's voice echoed through hidden speakers. "Let's talk about Trevor Morrison, shall we?" Chapter 5. The Harvest Begins. The basement air grew thick with tension as Tom faced his captives. The leader, Marcus, tested his restraints while his men exchanged nervous glances. "You picked the wrong house," Tom said, his voice carrying the cold authority of his Marine days. "The wrong target. The wrong job." "Look, man," Marcus started, his tough guy facade cracking. "This is just business. Nothing personal." Tom's fist connected with his jaw, cutting off his words. "Attempting to murder me for my wife and her lover? Feels personal to me." The other 2 men stiffened at this revelation. Tom noticed their reaction. Ah, they didn't tell you that part, did they? Just told you it was a simple hit disguised as a robbery? Tom circled them slowly. Let me guess, Trevor promised you each what, 50,000? 100? One of the men, younger than the others, swallowed hard. How do you? Shut up, Dave. Marcus snapped, blood trickling from his split lip. Dave's right to be concerned, Tom said, stopping in front of them. Because right now, Trevor's realizing something's wrong. He's probably calling in backup, making plans to disappear before this all goes bad. He leaned closer to Marcus. But we both know he won't pay for failed jobs, don't we? Marcus's face darkened. You don't know Trevor. I know he's hired you before. 3 jobs in the last year. All successful until now. Tom pulled out his phone, showing them documents. I know about the Newman job, the Richardson case, the accident at the marina. The third man, silent until now, cursed under his breath. Here's what happens next, Tom continued. Trevor's going to come looking for you. When he does, he'll find exactly what I want him to find. But first, he picked up a camera. You're going to help me send him a message. We're not saying anything, Marcus growled. Tom's laugh was devoid of humor. You misunderstand. You don't need to say anything. Your faces will do all the talking. He activated the camera, broadcasting directly to Trevor's office computer through Mateo's back door. The feed showed 3 professional killers, beaten and bound, fear evident in their eyes. Trevor, I know you're watching. Tom spoke to the camera. You thought you were buying my death. Instead, you bought front row seats to your own destruction. Keep watching. He turned back to his captives. Now, about those other jobs. Hours passed as Tom systematically broke down their resistance. He didn't need torture or extreme violence. He had information, leverage, and the patience of a trained interrogator. Dave broke first, spilling details about Trevor's operation. The second man, Tony, followed soon after. Marcus held out longer, but even he cracked when Tom played recordings of Trevor already working to pin everything on them. That snake, Marcus spat. We did everything he asked, and he's already selling us out? He's making calls to his contacts in the police department, Tom confirmed, painting you as rogue operators who tried to extort him. By tomorrow, you'll be his scapegoats. What do you want from us? Tony asked, defeat in his voice. Everything. Names, dates, details. Every job Trevor's commissioned. Every payoff. Every contact. Tom held up a digital recorder. Consider it your insurance policy. As they talked, Tom's phone lit up with messages from Mateo. Trevor's freaking out. Called 6 different numbers in the last hour. Tried to access his offshore accounts. Already locked him out. He's making mistakes. Tom sent back. Keep monitoring. Phase 2 starts soon. To his captives, he said. Comfortable? Good. Because we're about to put on a show that'll tear Trevor's world apart. He set up additional cameras, positioning them carefully. Your confessions are going live soon. But first, let's make sure Trevor and Eleanor understand exactly what they've done. Tom pulled up the surveillance feed from his house on a monitor. Eleanor had returned, pacing nervously in the living room, phone pressed to her ear. Trevor's not answering, she was saying to someone. Something's wrong. The team should have called hours ago. Tom smiled coldly. Watch this, he told his captives. He pressed a button, and Eleanor's phone rang. Hello? Her voice shook slightly. Check your email, Tom said, using a voice modulator. Eleanor rushed to her laptop. The color drained from her face as she opened the file. Video of her conversation with Trevor about the hit, followed by footage of her grieving widow practice session in their bathroom mirror. Who is this? What do you want? Justice, Tom replied. Tell Trevor to check his company's website in 1 hour. The truth is coming out. He ended the call, turning back to his captives. And now, gentlemen, you're going to help me destroy Trevor Morrison's entire world. Chapter 6. The Exposure. The morning sun had barely risen when Tom initiated the final phase of his plan. In the basement, his 3 captives sat before the camera, their confessions recorded and ready for broadcast. Above, Eleanor was frantically trying to reach Trevor, unaware that her husband was orchestrating their downfall from below. It's time, Tom announced, checking his monitors. Trevor's company website was experiencing unusually high traffic, Mateo's work, ensuring maximum exposure. Ready for your moment of fame? Marcus glared but said nothing. Dave and Tony just looked resigned. Tom activated the broadcast, hijacking Trevor's company's website. The professional corporate homepage dissolved into a live feed of the basement. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom began, his voice altered by the modulator. What you're about to see is the truth behind Trevor Morrison's real estate empire. These men were hired to commit murder this morning. Instead, they're going to tell you about all the other crimes they committed for Mr. Morrison. He played the recordings, hours of detailed confessions about mortgage fraud, intimidation, and worse. The viewer count climbed rapidly as Mateo ensured the feed spread across social media. Tom's phone buzzed. Trevor was calling Eleanor. What the hell is happening? Trevor's smooth voice had turned frantic. The office is going crazy. Clients are calling. The board is demanding answers. I don't know. Eleanor's panic was real now. He knows, Trevor. Whoever this is, they know everything. Shut up. I'm coming over. Don't talk to anyone. Tom switched to the street cameras, watching Trevor's Mercedes speed toward the house. Perfect. To his captives, he said, your boss is coming. Let's make sure he gets a proper welcome. He triggered the next video sequence, security footage showing Trevor meeting with the hit team, passing envelopes of cash, discussing problems that needed solving. The basement door opened, and Tom stepped back into the shadows as Trevor's footsteps pounded down the stairs. What the fuck is going on? Marcus? Dave? Trevor froze at the sight of his men bound and beaten. Hello, Trevor. Tom emerged, his voice now natural, watching recognition and fear flood Trevor's face. Baker? But how? Surprised to see the man you tried to have killed? Tom moved closer, enjoying Trevor's instinctive step backward. Did you really think I was just a simple construction worker? Trevor's hand moved toward his jacket. Tom had him pinned against the wall before he could reach his gun. 8 years as a Marine sniper, Tom said conversationally, disarming Trevor with practiced ease. 5 years CIA. But you didn't do your homework, did you? Too busy seducing my wife and planning my murder. Listen, Trevor's voice took on a pleading tone. We can work something out. Money? I can pay. I don't want your money. Tom zip-tied Trevor's hands. I want your destruction. And guess what? It's already happening. He turned Trevor to face the monitors showing his company's website. Comments and shares were exploding. News vans were arriving at the office. No, Trevor whispered. No, no, no. Yes. Tom positioned him in front of the camera. Your turn for a confession. I won't. You will. Because if you don't, these 3 will tell the police about all your other projects, including the ones your family doesn't know about. Trevor's resistance crumbled as Tom laid out the evidence. Years of illegal dealings, all documented and ready to release. You can confess now, take a plea deal later, maybe see daylight again in 20 years, Tom offered. Or stay silent, and I release everything. Your choice. Trevor talked. He talked about the murder plot, about Eleanor's involvement, about years of corruption and crime. The viewer count hit 6 figures as he implicated business partners, corrupt officials, other conspirators. When the police finally arrived, drawn by anonymous tips about a disturbance, they found a treasure trove of evidence. For men tied up in a basement, recordings of multiple crimes, a dead man switch ensuring everything would go public if anyone tried to bury it. Tom met them at the door, playing the role of shocked homeowner who defended himself from robbers. He gave his statement, provided the security footage of the break-in, and declined to press charges himself. The other evidence would be more than enough. Eleanor arrived as the police were leading Trevor and his men away. She stood on the front lawn, watching her carefully planned future crumble. Mrs. Baker? An officer approached her. We have some questions about your involvement with Mr. Morrison. Tom left before she could see him, slipping away as reporters began to arrive. In his pocket, he carried a simple note. I know, and you will see. He drove to Mateo's place, where they would monitor the fallout of their plan. Through the screens, they watched as Trevor's perfectly constructed world began to crumble. Check this out, Mateo said, pointing to one of his monitors. Trevor's company stock is in free fall. Board members are calling emergency meetings. His family's trying to distance themselves already. Tom nodded, watching the chaos unfold. What about Eleanor? Police are questioning her now. Mateo pulled up a video feed from the police station. She's trying to play innocent, but those recordings we released aren't leaving her much wiggle room. Through the feed, they could see Eleanor's composure cracking as detectives played back her conversations with Trevor. Her designer clothes and perfect makeup couldn't hide her growing desperation. I want to set up a new identity, Tom said, his voice firm. Something that'll let me disappear after this is done. Mateo raised an eyebrow. You're not sticking around to watch them go down? I've set the trap. Now I just need to make sure they can't escape it. Tom pulled out a USB drive. This contains everything. The complete records of Trevor's operations, Eleanor's involvement, all of it. Release it to the media if anything happens to me. You really think they might try something? Trevor has connections we don't know about. Better to be prepared. Tom checked his watch. Keep monitoring everything. I need to make one last stop. He drove back to his house, now quiet after the chaos of the morning. Police tape marked the broken front door. Inside, evidence markers dotted the rooms where his traps had sprung. Tom moved through the house, gathering specific items, photographs, documents, the recordings that would ensure Trevor and Eleanor's convictions. He took nothing personal, nothing that would suggest sentiment. His phone buzzed with news alerts. Real estate mogul Trevor Morrison arrested in murder-for-hire plot. Prominent realtor Eleanor Baker implicated in husband's attempted murder. Morrison family empire faces investigation following shocking revelation. The plan was working perfectly. Trevor's confession had opened floodgates of investigation. His business partners were scrambling to save themselves, offering up more evidence of his crimes. Eleanor's carefully crafted image as a successful realtor was shattering as clients and colleagues learned of her betrayal. Tom made one final sweep of the house, ensuring he'd left nothing to chance. In the bedroom, he placed Eleanor's note on her pillow. I know, and you will see. Simple words that would haunt her as she realized the full scope of her husband's capabilities. Back at Mateo's, they continued monitoring the situation. Trevor had been denied bail, deemed a flight risk. Eleanor was under house arrest, her assets frozen pending investigation. What now? Mateo asked as evening approached. Now we wait, Tom replied, watching the screens. Let them stew in their cells tonight, wondering what tomorrow will bring. Let them realize that their perfect plan didn't just fail. It destroyed everything they had. The news channels were running constant coverage of the scandal. Trevor's face, once proudly displayed in real estate advertisements, now appeared in mugshots. Eleanor's booking photo showed her mascara-streaked face, her expression a mixture of fear and disbelief. You know, Mateo said quietly, they'll eventually figure out it was you. That their simple construction worker husband was something else entirely. By then, it won't matter. Tom stood, stretching his tired muscles. I'll be gone, and they'll have years in prison to think about their choices. The screens continued to flash with updates. More arrests, more revelations, more destruction of Trevor's criminal empire. Tom watched it all with cold satisfaction, knowing that this was just the end of Act 2. The real punishment, the complete dismantling of their lives, was yet to come. But that would be another chapter. For now, he had accomplished what he set out to do. He had turned their trap against them, exposed their crimes, and set in motion events that would ensure their downfall. Better get some rest, he told Mateo. Tomorrow's going to be busy. Chapter 7. The Fall of Trevor. Trevor Morrison sat in his office, watching his empire crumble through the wall of screens before him. Each news channel broadcasted his downfall in vivid detail. The murder plot, the corruption, the years of crimes exposed in a matter of hours. Sir, his secretary's voice trembled through the intercom. The board members are demanding an emergency meeting. Trevor ignored her, his fingers flying across his phone screen as he tried to access his offshore accounts. Each attempt met with the same response. Access denied. Mr. Morrison. A security guard appeared at his door. The police are here with a warrant. Trevor's mask of confidence finally cracked. His hands shook as he reached for the crystal decanter on his desk. pouring himself 3 fingers of scotch. "Tell them I'll be right out." His voice, usually smooth as silk, came out rough. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. How does it feel, watching it all burn? The police entered before he could respond. Detective Sarah Chun, a veteran of the White-Collar Crimes Division, led the team. "Trevor Morrison," she announced, "you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and numerous other charges we're still cataloging." "This is ridiculous." Trevor attempted his usual charm. "There's been a misunderstanding." "Save it for your lawyer." Chun cut him off. "We have your hitmen in custody, singing like canaries. Plus hours of video evidence you so kindly broadcasted to the entire city." As they let him out in handcuffs, Trevor watched his employees filming with their phones. The same people who'd fawned over him hours ago now smirked at his disgrace. In the precinct holding cell, Trevor finally began to understand the depth of his destruction. His family's lawyer visited briefly, only to inform him that the Morrison family was distancing themselves from the scandal. "Your father wants you to know that your trust fund has been frozen," the lawyer stated coldly. "The family won't be posting bail." "He can't do that." Trevor surged to his feet. "That money is mine." "Actually, he can. The trust has a morality clause." "You've violated it spectacularly." Left alone, Trevor paced his cell. His phone calls went unanswered. Business partners, friends, even Eleanor ignored his pleas. A guard appeared with more news. "Your accounts have been flagged for investigation. The feds are involved now." Trevor slumped onto the hard bench. His mind raced through the events that had led here. The simple plan to eliminate Eleanor's husband had somehow triggered an avalanche that buried him instead. His court appearance the next day only worsened his situation. The prosecutor laid out a devastating case. Not just the murder plot, but years of fraudulent deals, bribes, and corruption. "Your Honor," the prosecutor announced, "we have evidence Mr. Morrison has been involved in multiple criminal enterprises." The attempted murder of Thomas Baker was just the latest in a long string of crimes. Trevor's expensive lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "My client maintains his innocence." "Save it," the judge interrupted. "Bail is denied. Mr. Morrison is remanded to custody pending trial." Back in his cell, Trevor received visitors, FBI agents with more questions about his business dealings. Each interview revealed new charges, new crimes he'd thought safely buried. "Someone's been feeding us information for months," one agent mentioned casually. "Building quite a case against you." Trevor's mind flashed to Baker, the quiet construction worker who'd somehow orchestrated his destruction. How had he not seen it? How had he underestimated him so completely? His family's response came through his lawyer. They were cutting all ties. The Morrison name, built over generations, couldn't weather this scandal. "Your father asked me to deliver this personally," the lawyer said, sliding a letter through the bars. Trevor read it with trembling hands. "You have brought shame to our family. Your actions have destroyed not just yourself, but threatened everything we've built. You are no longer a Morrison. Do not contact us again." In his cell that night, Trevor finally broke. The realization hit him. He lost everything. His wealth, his status, his family name, all gone. And somewhere out there, Thomas Baker was watching it all unfold exactly as he'd planned. Chapter 8. The Ruin of Eleanor. Eleanor Baker stood in her new apartment, a far cry from the luxury home she'd shared with Tom. The walls were thin, the furniture cheap, the neighborhood questionable. Her designer clothes and expensive tastes seemed absurd in these surroundings. Her phone, once constantly buzzing with client calls and messages, remained silent. The few times it did ring brought only bad news: another client firing her, another friend cutting ties, another bill she couldn't pay. She checked her bank accounts obsessively, watching her savings dwindle. Her real estate license had been suspended pending investigation. No brokerage would touch her now. "You've really made a mess of things," her lawyer had told her bluntly. "The evidence against you is overwhelming. You're looking at serious time unless you cooperate." Eleanor paced her small living room, remembering the video that had destroyed her life. Her own voice plotting Tom's murder, practicing her grieving widow act. The footage had gone viral, shared thousands of times. Her face, once featured in glamorous real estate advertisements, now appeared in news reports about betrayal and murder plots. A knock at her door made her jump. She opened it to find a well-dressed man she didn't recognize. "Mrs. Baker?" He smiled politely. "I'm here about your assets." "My assets?" "Yes. The forensic accountants have some questions about certain transactions between you and Mr. Morrison." Eleanor's stomach dropped. They were digging into everything now, unraveling the web of deceit she'd helped Trevor weave. "I don't know anything about that." She tried to close the door. "Mrs. Baker." His foot blocked the doorway. "Cooperation now might help your situation later." She let him in, listening numbly as he detailed the evidence against her. Money laundering, fraud, conspiracy. The charges kept piling up. After he left, Eleanor collapsed onto her shabby couch. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "How's the view from rock bottom?" She hurled the phone across the room, but the truth followed it. She'd done this to herself. Her greed, her ambition, her betrayal of a good man had led here. The next day brought more humiliation. At the grocery store, a former client spotted her. "Isn't that the woman who tried to have her husband killed?" The whispers followed her through the aisles. Eleanor abandoned her cart, fleeing to her car. She sat there, tears streaming down her face, remembering Tom's quiet strength, his devotion, his simple happiness that she'd scorned. A knock on her window startled her. A man stood there, his features somehow familiar yet strange. "Hello, Eleanor." She rolled down the window cautiously. "Do I know you?" "You could say that." He smiled, and something in that expression made her blood run cold. Recognition dawned slowly. Tom. But it wasn't quite Tom. His appearance was altered, his manner different. He handed her an envelope. "What's this?" "Your fate." He turned to leave, then paused. "I know, and you will see." Inside the envelope, Eleanor found documents detailing every crime she'd committed with Trevor, every fraudulent deal, every betrayal. At the bottom was a note. "Justice comes in many forms." She read through her own destruction, understanding finally hitting her. Tom hadn't just been a simple construction worker. He'd been something far more dangerous, and she'd been foolish enough to betray him. Chapter 9. The New Dawn. Miles away from his old life, Tom sat in his workshop, restoring an antique table. Buster dozed nearby, gray around the muzzle but content. The small town suited them both, quiet, unassuming, far from the chaos they'd left behind. His phone buzzed, Mateo sending updates. Trevor's trial was proceeding, the evidence overwhelming. Eleanor had taken a plea deal, trading information for a lighter sentence. The Morrison family's empire was crumbling as investigators uncovered decades of corruption. Tom set aside his tools, patting Buster's head as he moved to the kitchen. His new home was simple but comfortable, paid for with Trevor's own money, a fitting irony. A knock at the door revealed his neighbor, Sarah, with a pie. "Thought you might like some company for dinner." He accepted the pie with a genuine smile. "Thanks. Would you like to stay?" Over dinner, they talked about normal things, the weather, local gossip, his furniture restoration business. Sarah knew him as James Wilson, a quiet widower who'd moved to town seeking peace. After she left, Tom sat on his porch, watching the sunset. His phone buzzed again. Another update from Mateo. Eleanor had been sentenced to 15 years. Trevor faced even longer. "Good boy." Tom scratched Buster's ears. "We did what needed doing." He thought about his new life, the peace he'd found, the simple pleasures he'd rediscovered. The betrayal had changed him, hardened him further, but it hadn't broken him. In his study, a hidden safe contained evidence of his past life, photos, documents, recordings, insurance against any future threats. Tom had learned his lesson about trust, about keeping his guard up. But he'd also learned about justice, about the satisfaction of carefully planned revenge. Eleanor and Trevor had thought him weak, naive. They'd learned too late what he truly was, a predator who'd been playing at being prey. Tom poured himself a whiskey, remembering Eleanor's face when she'd finally recognized him, Trevor's desperation as his empire crumbled. He felt no regret, no remorse. They'd made their choices, and he'd made them pay. His new neighbors saw him as a friendly craftsman who kept to himself. They didn't need to know about the weapon cache in his basement, the surveillance equipment in his attic, the escape plans ready at a moment's notice. Some habits couldn't be broken. Some lessons shouldn't be forgotten. As night fell, Tom checked his security systems, a ritual from his past life that still brought comfort. Everything was quiet, secure. In his new town, under his new name, he'd found a different kind of peace. Not the peace of ignorance he'd had before, but the peace of a warrior who remained ready, who knew his own strength. The peace of a man who'd faced betrayal and emerged stronger, who'd turned enemies' plans against them and crafted destruction. Buster stirred in his sleep, and Tom smiled. They'd survived, adapted, moved on, but they hadn't forgotten. They never would. Epilogue. 5 years later, Tom, now known as James Wilson to the residents of Cedar Grove, Montana, stood in his expanded workshop. What had started as a small furniture restoration business had grown into a respected establishment, with 3 employees and a waiting list of clients eager for his craftsmanship. His hands moved steadily over a century-old dresser as his mind wandered to the past. Old Buster's collar hung on the wall, a reminder of his faithful companion who had passed 2 years ago. Beside it sat a framed article from the city paper, "Morrison Empire Crumbles. Final Assets Seized." The article brought a cold smile to his face. Trevor Morrison had received 30 years without possibility of parole. His attempt to bargain for a lighter sentence had backfired spectacularly when Tom, through carefully planted evidence, had exposed even more of his crimes. Tom's secure phone buzzed. Mateo's weekly update. Trevor's latest appeal was denied. The message read, "Eleanor's up for parole next month, but the board's already decided to reject it. Thought you'd want to know." Tom sent back a simple acknowledgement. Eleanor had served 5 years of her 15-year sentence. The parole rejection would hit her hard. Another small payment for her betrayal. His workshop door chimed as Sarah entered, carrying their usual lunch. Their friendship had evolved into something more over the years, though Tom maintained careful boundaries. She knew him only as James, the widowed craftsman with a talent for restoration and a preference for privacy. "Brought your favorite," she said, setting down 2 containers of homemade stew. "How's the Anderson piece coming along?" Tom wiped his hands clean. "Almost finished. Just need to repair some inlay work." They ate together, discussing town matters and upcoming projects. Sarah ran the local real estate office, an irony that still amused Tom. Unlike Eleanor, Sarah's success came from genuine skill and honest dealings. "Did you see the news about that corruption case?" Sarah asked between bites. "The one from your old city?" Tom nodded noncommittally. The Morrison case still made headlines occasionally, especially when new evidence emerged of their criminal enterprise's reach. "Hard to believe people can be so cruel," Sarah continued. "Planning to murder someone for insurance money. It's inhuman. Some people deserve what they get," Tom replied quietly. After lunch, Tom checked his security feeds, another habit he'd never abandoned. His new home was a fortress disguised as a modest ranch house, with escape routes, weapons caches, and surveillance systems that would impress his old CIA handlers. His laptop held encrypted files tracking the key players from his past. Trevor Morrison, still in federal prison. Multiple appeals denied. Family fortune gone, name disgraced. Recent prison reports indicated he'd aged badly, his famous charm replaced by bitter rage. Eleanor Baker, prisoner number 24789, 1 year 5 of 15. Multiple disciplinary incidents. Psychiatric evaluation noted, severe depression and paranoid tendencies. Still obsessed with identifying the man who'd visited her before her arrest. Marcus, former hitman, serving 20 years after turning state's evidence. His testimony had helped bury Trevor deeper, just as Tom had planned. Dave and Tony, other hitmen, 12 years each, both model prisoners hoping for early release. They still had nightmares about the house that had turned into a trap. The Morrison family, reduced to upper-middle-class status after the scandal. They'd salvaged some wealth but lost their social standing. Tom's carefully planted evidence had implicated several family members in Trevor's crimes. Mateo had done well for himself. Tom's share of Trevor's hidden accounts had set them both up comfortably. The tech expert now ran a legitimate cybersecurity firm, though he maintained the skills and contacts that had helped destroy the Morrisons. A notification popped up on Tom's secure screen. Eleanor had tried again to access her old email accounts. Even in prison, she was still searching for answers, trying to understand how her simple husband had orchestrated her destruction. Tom opened a hidden folder containing surveillance photos from the prison. Eleanor's designer clothes and perfect makeup had been replaced by prison scrubs and hollow eyes. Her recent photos showed a woman haunted by her choices, broken by consequences she'd never anticipated. His phone buzzed again, a different kind of update. His remaining CIA contacts occasionally passed him information about potential threats. Old habits died hard, and Tom preferred staying informed. Former associate of Trevor's asking questions about Thomas Baker. Want us to handle it? Tom considered the offer. Send me the details. I'll take care of it. The past had a way of rippling into the present. Tom had learned to watch for those ripples, to deal with them before they became waves. Later that evening, Tom drove home to his ranch house on the outskirts of town. The property's isolation suited him, clear lines of sight, no surprise approaches. The security system reported all clear as he entered. Sarah's car was parked in the driveway. She often came over for dinner, bringing warmth to his carefully maintained solitude. Tonight, she prepared his kitchen for a cooking lesson she'd been insisting on. You can't live on diner food forever, she teased, handing him an apron. Tom allowed himself to enjoy the moment while staying alert. Sarah was good company, honest and direct. But he'd learned his lesson about trust. His heart remained guarded, his true nature concealed. As they cooked, Tom's secure phone displayed another update. Eleanor had been in the prison infirmary again. Her latest breakdown had included claims about her ex-husband being a government assassin. Nobody believes her, Mateo's message noted. Staff thinks she's delusional. Perfect cover. Tom served the dinner they'd prepared, listening to Sarah's stories about her day. She was everything Eleanor wasn't, genuine, content with simple pleasures, honest to her core. You're quiet tonight, she observed, touching his hand gently. Just thinking about an old project, he replied. After Sarah left, Tom checked his surveillance feeds one final time. His laptop displayed another news update. Trevor Morrison had been found unconscious in his cell, another failed attempt to end his suffering. Tom closed the laptop, pouring himself a whiskey. The ice clinked against the glass as he stepped onto his back porch. The Montana night spread out before him, peaceful and vast. He'd chosen this place carefully, close enough to civilization for his business, far enough for security. The town accepted him as the quiet craftsman who'd found peace in working with his hands. Only he knew about the weapons room behind his wine cellar, the escape vehicles hidden in plain sight, the multiple identities and accounts ready for instant evacuation. A shooting star streaked across the sky. Tom remembered Eleanor's fascination with luxury, her desperation for status. Now she slept on a prison cot, her dreams of wealth replaced by nightmares of exposure and ruin. Trevor Morrison, who'd once commanded boardrooms and bent politicians to his will, now shuffled through prison corridors in shackles. His family name was mud, his empire demolished, his arrogance reduced to impotent rage. Their hired muscle, Marcus, Dave, and Tony, had learned too late that they'd chosen the wrong target. Their prison sentences were the price of underestimating a quiet man with hidden depths. Tom's phone buzzed one last time for the night. A message from his CIA contact. Took care of that loose end. Morrison's former associate won't be asking any more questions. He sent back his thanks, then deleted the exchange. The past still needed management sometimes. Threads that required snipping before they could tangle. Inside his study, Tom opened his hidden safe. Among the documents and evidence lay a single photograph, him in his Marine dress uniform, receiving a commendation he couldn't discuss. The man in that photo had known who he was, had never needed expensive suits or social status to prove his worth. Eleanor and Trevor had seen a simple construction worker, an easy mark for their schemes. They'd learned too late that appearances could be deceiving, that true strength often came disguised in humble packages. Sarah's cooking lesson had left dirty dishes in his sink. Tom washed them with the same attention he gave to everything thorough, focused, complete. The mundane task reminded him of that last night in his old house, washing dishes while Eleanor plotted his death. His new life suited him. The furniture restoration business let him work with his hands, create rather than destroy. His relationship with Sarah offered companionship without vulnerability. The town provided community without compromising his privacy. But beneath the surface, he remained the predator who turned the hunters into prey. His home security systems, the weapons hidden throughout, the escape plans regularly updated, all testified to lessons learned and wisdom earned. Tomorrow, he'd open his workshop, restore beautiful things to their former glory, share lunch with Sarah, and play his role as James Wilson, respected craftsman. He'd check his feeds, monitor potential threats, maintain the vigilance that had kept him alive through wars and betrayals. The simple life he'd once sought had been a fantasy, naive and dangerous. This life, aware, prepared, guarded, was real. He'd found his peace not in ignorance but in strength, not in trust but in control. In their cells, Eleanor and Trevor still woke from nightmares, haunted by the quiet man who destroyed them so completely. They'd never understand that their betrayal had freed him, had burned away his illusions and restored him to his true nature. Tom finished his whiskey. The ice now melted. In the distance, coyotes howled, predators announcing their presence to the night. He smiled, feeling a kinship with them. Some men wore expensive suits and spoke of power. Others stayed quiet, watched, and waited for the right moment to strike. Eleanor had once accused him of being boring, predictable. Trevor had dismissed him as beneath notice, unworthy of respect. They learned the price of such assumptions. Their prison sentences were only part of their punishment. The true torture was knowing that somewhere, the man they'd betrayed lived free, successful, and completely beyond their reach. Tom locked up for the night, his routine precise and thorough. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats to watch for, new opportunities to guard his peace. He was ready, as he'd always been. In the end, he'd won more than revenge. He'd reclaimed himself, shed the illusions of his false contentment, embraced the warrior he'd tried to deny. Eleanor's betrayal had been a gift, really, a harsh wake-up call that had restored him to his true strength. Let Trevor rage in his cell. Let Eleanor search futilely for answers. Let the world think Thomas Baker had vanished into thin air. Here in Montana, James Wilson lived his carefully crafted life, aware and ready, at peace with both his power and his solitude. The last light went out in his house. In the darkness, a predator rested, vigilant even in repose, content in the knowledge that justice had been served and lessons had been learned. Some debts could never be repaid. Some betrayals could never be forgiven. Some men could never be underestimated again. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.